ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ। ਸੋ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਅੱਜ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ once again ਨਿਊਜ਼, ਖਬਰਾਂ, ਪੋਲਿਟਿਕਸ ਇਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਗੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਬਟ ਇਟਸ always a proud moment for us and ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਉਭਰਦਾ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲ, ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਲਈ ਇੰਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਖੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। It's even more impactful when these kind of individuals happen to be women, especially young women. ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੁਸਾਇਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਫੀਮੇਲ ਰੋਲ ਮਾਡਲਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਖੜੇ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, the better our future generations will be. So I am so proud and so excited to introduce you to my guest this evening, a rising star in our community. Social charitable services ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੇਖ ਲਓ, education ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੇਖ ਲਓ, professional career development ਵੱਲੋਂ ਵੇਖ ਲਓ, as well as some really exciting initiatives that kind of go outside of all of these areas. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest for this evening, the young and beautiful Rhea Manjrekar. Rhea, welcome to the program. Sat Sri Akal, namaste. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm very, very excited to be here today.
It's so good to have you. You were introduced to us by other members, leaders of the community, women that are always doing initiatives to inspire and bring the community together, and you are one of these individuals that was identified as this young woman to look up to.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Rhea, you have pretty normal beginnings, like a lot of brown young women do that grow up in the United States or outside countries, but you're doing something amazing with your time. Before we get into everything that you do on a daily basis, let's start a little bit about when you were younger. What kind of a household were you raised in? What kind of upbringing did you have? How did you connect to your culture growing up in the United States?
So my parents, they were not born here. They came here when they were teenagers, and they kind of had a big part of their life growing up here. And they thought it was very important for us to be raised with our Indian roots, but also learn to become Americanized and make sure that we're assimilating to the culture really well. And what I love about my parents is it wasn't the typical strict Indian parents that you kind of hear a lot of people have. They told me that I could do anything that I wanted to do as long as I gave 110%. So even when I was in high school and trying to figure out what major to be, where to go to school, they said, no matter what you do, we will support you. They didn't say you have to be a doctor or a lawyer, the kind of things that you hear. So they really created a path for me to be my own person and stay true to my roots, but also make sure to make a name for myself that I'm proud of.
How did you, as you were kind of navigating through your educational journey, what were the things that you were drawn to the most? I mean, you say, doctor, lawyer, engineer, and these are the areas that our parents, apni community ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ push ਕਰਦੀ, and for a good reason. What did you see yourself getting drawn to?
I knew that I always wanted to work with people. I loved talking to people. I loved being with people. I was a social butterfly. So I knew that no matter what career I picked, I wanted to be able to work with people. And when I was in high school, I saw myself really drawn to math and problem solving. I wasn't good at it, but I loved it. And it's a strange, dichotomy to love something that you're not naturally good at. But I would go to office hours. I'd stay after school and I would do all the advanced assignments. I would take these really difficult classes. And again, wasn't good at it, but I loved it. So when I was looking at majors and what career I wanted to do, I thought, okay, I love math, so I'm going to become a math teacher. I didn't think there was any other career out there for me. And I said, perfect, problem solving, working with people. And then my mom, because she's a genius, she said, why don't you look into computer programming and engineering? And I said, I don't know what that is. I didn't know a single woman in my life that was an engineer. I had no role model to look up to that was already in that field. So I did some research. I took my first computer programming class my senior year of high school, only girl in the class. Walked in, teacher says, are you sure you're in the right room? And I was like, I think so. I'm here for computer programming. And he was like, okay, yeah, this is the right place. And he was very confused. and I loved it. So that's how I chose computer engineering as my major in college. And I went to Stony Brook and I got into their Women in Science and Engineering honors program, which was great because it provided me a scholarship. So, no student debt there. And also it was a program that really empowered women in STEM and created those opportunities for us.
I mean, first of all, go Seawolves, also
Woo!
Stony Brook alum here. But, you highlighted something really important, the lack of representation, lack of people that look like us, that are brown, females in these spaces, especially when we look at STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math fields. Even today, even in this modern era, it's not, uncommon to walk into a room and see all men, or to see, all men of a certain race. And so we have a lot of work to do, but you're working to actively change that. Rhea, there's a saying, beauty and brains. So you've clearly got the brains part figured out, but there's a beauty element to this, which is one of the reasons we're so excited to have you on your show. As folks might have seen, Miss Five Boroughs is written under your name. That is just one of your accomplishments. So tell us about this Miss Five Boroughs title. Pageantry and the beauty world is something that people have a certain, conception about. But your experience has been very different. So tell us how you got into it and what it's been like.
Yeah, so my experience was that I didn't initially want to even do pageants. So I had that stereotype in my head of the girls who do pageants are catty and mean and what you see on TV, and it's a beauty competition, which was not what I stood for at all. So my mom saw an ad in the local newspaper for Miss Teen India in New York, and I was 14 or 15 years old, and she said, "You should do this. It would be really good for you to, get out there and make friends and put on your resume." And I said, "Absolutely not. There is no way I'm doing a beauty pageant. No." So she secretly signed me up without me even knowing about it. And we showed up to the first day of rehearsals, and I had no idea what to expect. And I walk into this room of about 15 beautiful girls, all dressed up. I'm not dressed up. I had never worn high heels in my life until that point. And I was intimidated. But I spoke to these girls, and they were all the same age as me. They knew what they wanted to do when they grew up. They had straight A's in school. They were well-rounded. They played instruments. They were in clubs and sports. They were truly inspiring. And I said, wow, these are the kind of girls I want to surround myself with. Wow. And this is what I aspire to be. And to this day, it's been about 10 years. We're all still best friends. Like, they're coming to my birthday party in a couple weeks. We are all so, so, so close. So that's a true testament to what pageantry really is about. It's about sisterhood. It's about service. And it's definitely not a beauty competition. That year was my first year competing, and I placed first runner-up. And I don't think I was the most traditionally beautiful girl in that competition, but I was authentic. I was myself. I did Taekwondo, martial arts, for my talent. The judges loved that. And I talked about my community service a lot, and they also loved that. So that is how I placed so high, and that shows what pageantry is really about.
Once again, these are all attributes that when we think about the next generation of corporate or world leaders, that's the kind of upbringing, that's the kind of foundation we expect to see in their background, in their youth. So pageantry really, especially the way you describe this experience, sets these young women up to be so much more than just a pretty face. But Rhea, you mentioned community service. We love that. Obviously, we love Seva, and I want to learn more about this community service in particular. ਅੱਜ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵੱਖਰਾ ਜਿਹਾ program ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ, a program of inspiration, and really, what representation can do ਸਾਡੀ ਅਗਲੀ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਲਈ, ਉਨ ਬੱਚੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਦੀ ਕਵਾਰ ਇਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਾਂ ਸਿਰਫ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੋਕਸ ਕਰੋ ਜਾਂ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਫੇਸਿੰਗ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸੱਭਿਆਚਾਰਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਲਵੋ। ਵਾਈ ਨਾਟ ਬੋਥ? ਕੀ ਬੈਨੀਫਿਟ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੱਚੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੌਨਫੀਡੈਂਸ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੋਰ ਵੱਖਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਸਪੋਰਟਸ ਹੋਣ, ਬਿਊਟੀ ਪੈਜੈਂਟਸ ਹੋਣ, ਐਕੈਡੈਮਿਕ ਇੰਡੈਵਰਸ ਹੋਣ, ਰਾਈਟ? ਸੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ ਜੋ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਹਿਰਤਾ ਦਿਖਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੈ, the young and beautiful Rhea Manjrekar. Rhea, welcome back. It's so good to have you. A local, a Stony Brook graduate. Today you're working in a very, once again, male-dominated and competitive industry, your foundation with your parents' guidance, your mom's push did end up getting you into a place, that we would think that, okay, the average Indian person does belong here. But that doesn't mean we see a lot of Indian women in these fields, right? So before we get into your community service bit, tell us a little bit about what your day job looks like.
Sure. So I am a software implementation consultant for the New York City Department of Finance. And I basically build software every day to help these government agencies and to honestly make the everyday New Yorker's life a little bit easier.
Wow. I mean, once again, like sunde hui lagda, like that's a pretty big deal job. But you've kind of retained your humble roots, your down to earth nature, because you got started in some charity work when you were pretty young, and you've been an advocate for this work throughout your life. So I really want to talk about that, and I kind of want to learn about this organization that you're so connected to. So tell us about, first, how you got involved with this work and how you've evolved through the years, doing this charity.
Yeah, so when I was about 13 or 14 years old, my pediatrician at the time was the president of Children's Hope India, which was an organization that was created by a bunch of professionals who really wanted to serve and help the homeless and underprivileged children in India. And they had a branch called Children's Hope India too that was led by a group of 20-somethings who really wanted to make an impact a little bit more locally. So I said, I want to help out, but I didn't know how. I was so young, I didn't know if I could really make a difference. So I brought up the idea of starting Children's Hope India 3, except this chapter would be run solely by high school students. So a group that was helping children, that was also made by children. And our motto is Children Helping Children, which is so heartwarming and truly so impactful. And in the last 10 years now, we've raised over $100,000 to help children locally in New York and the tri-state area, as well as in India. And everything truly is the fundraisers, the marketing, the networking, the physically visiting the shelters to go drop off everything that we buy with the funds that we've raised is all done by this group of high school students.
Wow. Once again, I'm left speechless here, and it's my job to talk, because, it's nice to hear when a young adult, a young professional is engaging in this kind of activity. I think, your high school, your college years show you the value of, social responsibility, doing things to give back, right? But to hear that you started at an even younger age, and that you didn't just, feel passionately or strongly about this work, but that you rallied other kids to do it, and you're continuing to rally children of that age. It's there's a saying in Hindi or Punjabi that choti lakkad cheti ag faddi hai, right? A smaller stick catches fire faster than a bigger log. You start these kids at a young age and get them almost addicted to the act of giving back. What's more powerful? And we're so lucky, right? The fact that our families, that we're even brought up here, we are much luckier than a lot of kids around the world. If we look back home, if we look at what else is going on in the world. So to help children is one of the best things you can do with your time. Hands down. Tell us a little bit more about, the day-to-day stuff in this organization that you do that makes you feel, that your life is more than just the professional, accomplishments and the pageants and the glitz and the glam, right? How does this ground you and make you feel, like you're giving back?
So the reason I continued to do pageants after that first one was because I realized that with a pageant title, I could really use the platform to promote my personal charity. And everyone that competes in a pageant has to have a community service initiative that they promote and they work on throughout the year. So I continue to do pageants because I'm able to use my voice to promote Children's Hope India 3. And what I love about Children's Hope India 3, or CH3 for short, is it truly is a legacy of service, right? So every couple years, we elect a new group of high school students to take on the responsibilities. And then the group that leaves, they become more of a mentor in that role, which is what I do now. I really oversee the operations and I offer my advice and guidance because I was there when I was 14 trying to talk to a restaurant owner to get them to have a fundraiser in the restaurant, right? It's hard to take a 14-year-old seriously. So it's really important that these kids are articulate, they have a business plan, they know what they want to do. And these are the skills that we're teaching these high school students. And our goal is to really make the service something that they enjoy, not that they have to do. Instilling these service values at the age of 14 means that when they grow up and become adults, they're going to continue doing community service in other aspects. And our day-to-day really looks like planning, lots of planning for fundraisers and making sure that they're successful through social media, through promoting it, making sure there's always options to donate online. And for example, one of our biggest fundraisers is sending a group of homeless children to an all-expense-paid summer camp in the summer, which as a parent, childcare is very expensive. And when you're struggling to put food on the table, that's probably the last thing that you're thinking about. Yeah. So every year we send about 15 to 20 homeless children to an all-expense-paid summer camp. And that's our biggest project. And it's great because homeless shelters are actually closed during the day. So kids are often left out on the streets, and that can lead to behavior like drugs and gang violence and things that that's a big issue for youth in New York, honestly. So being able to put them in a supervised environment where they're also having fun is the best thing ever, because children, they're our future leaders. So it's really important that we do everything that we can to empower them.
And to preserve their childhood. Yes. This is, when you think about it, homeless shelters, especially in metropolitan, heavily populated areas like New York City or other big cities, they're not a catch-all type of resource. It is just for the night times. And even then, there is a lot of shady stuff that takes place at these shelters, right? To give children an opportunity to escape that for a while, to do something that a normal child would get to do. That is really powerful. Rhea, I know, obviously as part of your call to action, you really want to draw, folks' attention to this charity work. But I'd love, in closing, that you do kind of speak to, all the young women that may be listening to you out there today, on how you balance all of these things. And also, what general takeaway folks can walk away from this conversation. Of course, any information about the charity as well.
Of course. So if anyone wants to get involved in CH3, whether that's, a high school student who would be interested in becoming a member, or you just want to donate, we have a website that gives you that option, which is childrenshopeindia.com. So feel free to visit to learn more about what we do, learn how you can support, attend some of our fundraisers. If you're local, we would greatly appreciate that. And in closing, when I reflect back on how pageants and Children's Hope India 3 in the last, honestly, decade of my life, I think something that I've learned now as a soon-to-be 25-year-old is go for it. When I started Children's Hope India 3, when I started doing pageants, when I decided I wanted to major in computer engineering, even though I wasn't good at it, I just went for it. And I learned that it's okay to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. We had some, fundraisers that weren't as successful. I had some exams in college I didn't do well on. I lost a lot of pageants before I won Miss 5 Boroughs, which now I'll be competing for Miss New York in July. And I really, really think that you have to go for it and learn that every failure is just a stepping stone to opening a new door.
Absolutely. When one door closes, another opens somewhere. Exactly. So you have to keep at it 100%. Rhea, it was such a wonderful conversation, so inspiring. And it's always nice to get away from the doom and gloom of the daily news cycle. So we appreciate that always. Once again, अगर तुसी Rhea दे नाल संपर्क करना चाहते हो, साडे नाल कोई भी questions, comments, concerns इस show नू लेके रखना चाहते हो, तुसी साडे नाल directly भी connect कर सकते हो info@jusbroadcasting.com. ashmita@justbroadcasting.com. ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ। ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।